astrology isn't real, then why are we all feeling just information fatigue on 1000, on repeat, all the time? I'm going to break down some of the astrology of the brain rot and just the information overload we are feeling right now. Maybe a little bit of what we can even do with that, and so much more on today's mini-sode. Welcome to If Astrology Isn't Real. I am your host. I am your guide. I am your cosmic consultant, your metaphysician, Maddie Murphy. And if you're new here, welcome. This is just a little mini-sode where I like to break down what the heck is happening out there in the collective, in the pop culture, in the political landscape, geopolitical landscape, in the world stage. How can we understand that better through the astrological framework, give a little cosmic context, just so we can yap about it and look at things from a different perspective, right? Because there's so much happening. OMG. First of all, I just want to thank everyone. We had the return of these minisodes last Friday, and the response was great. I got some love letters through the podcast, fan mail, I think they're called, and some comments on YouTube. And I appreciate it. I really missed doing it. It was an overwhelming summer, but it was fun to have a kind of grounding episode last week of just like a little bit of a check-in and a reminder of why we are here, what the astrology says about it. And of course, looking back, it's not the first time that we've gone through these cycles, but we're doing them all at once in a really unprecedented way. So if you feel overloaded, don't worry. It's not just you, but I do want to give you a little hope core today. I want to give us a little hope, a little hype always, because we can learn so much from these cycles, right? So today we're going to talk a little about the continued political violence happening. What does the astrology say about that? We're going to talk a little bit about, just a little bit of what is happening right now, how it is so tied into the astrology in general for 2025, what's going on for 2026 as just the imprint of that. And I said I wanted to do some pop culture on here too. It doesn't always be so heavy about these mostly mans ruining this country. Did I say that? And But for real, there's other stuff going on. I, of course, was trying to scan the pop culture landscape this week and be like, what to talk about? And honestly, my biggest takeaway was just brain rot and the concept of it and what the current astrology says about it. Okay, so let's chat a little bit about the astrology. Okay, so we had another incidence of political violence this week at a Dallas ICE facility. It's still super weird and confusing. It's like they shot ICE detainees, which is so incredibly effed up, as if things with ICE couldn't get any worse. But then it was like the bullets were etched with like "End ICE" or something. And I feel like if someone watched the Luigi Mangione thing and someone like the CIA and they're like, that's it, radical people like etch things on bullets. And that's how we're going to do all our manifestos now. And so I just want to speak on, obviously, political violence is always abhorrent and just so awful. But I think what a lot of us are feeling, and maybe it's just myself or some of the circles I roll in, is it's almost so confusing to understand anything on the internet nowadays. Like, what is real? What's not real? What's AI? What's deep fake? What's like kind of a conspiracy? I think one of the smartest things that the powers that be maybe have done over the past few years was take conspiracies and really make them a radical right thing, QAnon thing. Because I'm like, honey, to be alive in a US government is to understand the conspiracy is real. Like, all you have to do is look at the history, look at the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., look at what happened with the CIA, use of LSD and acid and working with Charles Manson. Look at what's happened in any country, Nicaragua and the Sandinistas. This is not to think the government and the feds get involved in things when they're not supposed to, try to shift a narrative. To think that is like all conspiracy is just not true, right? Or it's not a theory. Maybe it is a conspiring. My point being is that it's really hard to understand what's going on. What is what in the landscape nowadays? Like, what is, these stories come out and it's immediately, it goes from, it's very like this Neptune, right? Neptune and Aries, Neptune, like what is what? There's all of this violence. Aries, Neptune, though, it's very confusing. It's foggy, right? It's like illusion. There's a lot we don't understand to it. And then it goes into the immediate Uranus and Gemini of it all, where everyone starts splicing off into different corners of the internet and different information, different factions. And if you look at it, someone else's algorithm than you might be like, are we living on a different internet? Because this is not at all the internet that I'm living on. the news that I'm seeing, the things that I'm seeing, the comments that I'm seeing, the bots that I'm even seeing. So just honoring like how overwhelming and confusing it all is. I would love to some recommended listening if you want to listen to. I love S.J. Anderson as an astrologer. He's, I think, primarily on YouTube. He has really thoughtful, grounded astrological reports. And he, like myself, is very interested in the politics and history and astrology through that lens. He did a great video on how what we're experiencing now is very similar to Saturn and Jupiter. Sorry, let me see. But oh my God, yeah, Saturn and Jupiter, my brain. We're talking about brain rot. Saturn and Jupiter cycles, especially in the 1960s, we're repeating a lot of what is happening then with Saturn and Jupiter. Like we're repeating a lot of the 1960s astrology, which is interesting because even in the past 2 weeks, it was brought up how Charlie Kirk talked about how the civil rights movement should be ended. And I think if any of you were alive during the 1960s, I imagine this level of unrest, right, on the domestic level, on the international level, could be probably similar. But now, again, we just have more access to information, more news sources, more media sources, more voices in the conversation. And of course, now we have AI, deep fakes, all this stuff. It just makes it really overwhelming. But in that video, he talks about there are always people who are leading us, who are part of this, I like to call it the joyful reimagining, right? And that's just, I think, part of what we need to go through as a society personally is just this, like, I see it's like this almost enormous breakdown where no side of the political aisle, no socioeconomic class of people, no group of people could be like, yeah, this is working. This is good. We should fight to uphold the status quo. So a lot does have to break down before we can break through. And it feels like we've been doing this forever in some ways. But in other ways, I'm like, it took a lot to get us here. So it's going to take a lot to unwind. And I think that the cool thing about this astrology is it is like, it naturally lifts up and amplifies to people who are understanding the assignment, I believe, of the karmic energy that we're supposed to be riding right now. So if we look at Pluto and Aquarius, right? The Aquarians, the weirdos, the outcasts stepping up into more leadership roles, the people who are never felt like welcomed by the current structures and felt like outcasts, felt like they didn't fit in. If that's you, yeah, this is your time. Pluto stepping into power. There's the Neptune and Aries of it all. I feel like it's time for people who have been doing spiritual work to step into leadership positions. I think it's time for people in leadership positions to start doing some spiritual work. There's always like a message, right, in the planetary movement. So speaking of that movement, we have the political violence going on, and that really started even with like last summer. We saw that, and that's unfortunately one of the signatures of the time. We have Saturn just retrograde back into Pisces. Saturn is going to go into Aries again at the end of the year, and Neptune will be there. Saturn and Neptune and Aries for 2026. We talked about it at the top of the year. This year, it is like militarization of society. There is a level of violence there, and there's a level of like confusion and delusion. And so I know that as of the time of this recording, Pete Hegseth is gathering all of the major military leaders to Virginia next week to be there at the same time, which is not only alarming, but also I think speaks to maybe some of the themes that we're going to be seeing coming here. But also remind us that Saturn and Neptune and Aries is this huge call to step out. Every person has a role in this. Every person has a moment to just choose a better path. And it's really going to be up to the individuals to each do something to form this larger Aquarian group, Pluto change from the inside out, which I think in some ways is just, I actually like it. It's very empowering, right? We're not waiting for someone else to do it. We're not waiting for some outside force. We've tried to do that, and clearly it ain't working. I think the more people waking up to the ways that the system is broken, the way it's meant to keep us divided, the better. Stay grounded. I think that there is, kind of segueing into this concept of brain rot, I think that there is going to be some sort of really like big collective backlash against something, whether it's information, whether it's connection, whether it's our smartphones. I feel like everyone I talk to is just in information fatigue. I got to talk to a few different like parents of older children, like middle school, high school children this week. And they're like, it's just the brain is the kids come home, they're overstimulated from school, they're on their phones while watching TV, while this, that. And it's like you're reading an article and you go read another article. And it's like, how could any of us have a semblance of an attention span left? And I saw that some schools have been outlining the cell phones in school, which am I a boomer? But I was like, why are there even like cell phones allowed in school during the classroom times anyway? But I think the Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, I just really predict seeing over the coming years. We've been talking about this for a while, but I can see it really fully forming like deep, I would say either policy level change or collective consciousness, like the collective psyche, really shifting against what's happening in online spaces, whether that's more protection for our kids online, media literacy around getting radicalized online, whether it's more like mommy bloggers realizing like, hey, maybe it's not cool to monetize my young children without their consent, all the way up into people being like, let's have phone-free spaces, phone-free hangs. Because it's like there's like too much information out there. And also we throw in the chat GBTs. I think there's also going to be a return to people wanting to do things, I hope, just in person, like slow living, of like slow socializing. I love, it's such a challenge for me, but I really try and challenge my brain when I don't know something just to think about it a little bit more versus picking it up and Googling it. I really try lately when I'm in public to not look at my phone mindlessly, to look around, make eye contact, start conversation, ask questions. And I feel like that's the other part of the Uranus and Gemini going to be a big revolution, a big backlash against not only the big social media guys and the technocrats, the Pluto and Aquarius, the Musks, the Zuckerbergs, all that, the Sam Altmans. But I think we're also going to be having, I hope, a little bit of like consumer like collective shifts against this attention economy that we're in, where everyone's fighting for our attention and trying to also, I think I talked about it last week, but with social media, I think we're all just like, what is this anymore? What is this thing? Like, is this even sparking joy? In some ways, I love seeing what my friends are up to. I love also knowing I'm not alone in something. When I feel something, I see a TikTok or a meme, like that's exactly what I'm feeling. But in a lot of ways, when I'm honest with myself, like the more time I spend on social media, right? The more time I spend in consumption mode, the less I am connected to my life force. So I hope with Uranus and Gemini, we can have a lot of revolutionary energy around the mindset, but also around like socializing. Again, what does that mean? What does that mean to be in actual connection with other people? Okay, so wrapping up here, I think brain rot, Uranus and Gemini is a big thing. And I also want to encourage us to, with Saturn, when it was back into Aries, end of November, Neptune in Aries, just an invitation to really be in like your radical, authentic expression. I think people, one thing they're definitely over with information overload and fatigue is people just putting out the perfectly curated lives, the list, the do this, the don't do that. I think people were seeking authentic connection. And we're also being fatigued. If anyone's ever been on like a trend part of Instagram or TikTok, it's you must wear this, you can't wear this is in, this is out. I think this Aries energy is like, hey, now we have everything in our fingertips that you could ever have. What are you going to do with it? And how can you do that to reflect and celebrate and embody your most authentic self? And what does that do to shift our collective, right? Just exciting things coming up in that field. Let me know if there's any charts you want me to do. Some people reached out for me to do the chart of Italy. This is right before I got on here, so I didn't have time to pull it up. On the chart of Gavin Newsom. The one thing I will say, hot take on both of those things right off the bat. Shout out to my Italians. I saw the protests that happened in honor of Palestine this past few weeks. Americans take note. Like they are shutting down the government. I saw a video of just bridges being shut down, people stuck in traffic. People happy, Italians happy about being stuck in traffic because they're like, this is for a good cause. And so I'm like, oh, I definitely want to look up the birth chart of Italy. The Gavin Newsom of it all. I did do a quick peek. Very interesting. I feel like his campaign, his social media manager, who I know is a young Latina woman. So it makes so much sense. Like just the creativity, the aliveness of what she has helped him bring to social media started right around Uranus and Gemini, right? In July of this year. So we know, again, Uranus bringing some disruption, Gemini to the media spaces. And of course, Trump himself is a Gemini. So I love this, want more of this. And I did pull a little bit of his chart. I didn't get to do an in-depth breakdown, but I did look at it. And I'm like, okay, I do see some interesting energy for the next election cycle around his chart. And again, it's like, wow, is it really a victory just having another white, straight, cisgendered man as our president? But I think right now we're all like, God, anything is better than what's happening right now. But also, is that the trap? And this is what I'm talking about, the Uranus and Gemini, Saturn, Neptune of it all. Everything is like so confusing. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Gavin Newsom in general. What's our hot takes? And let me know if there's anything that you want me to talk about next week. I can definitely go forward with Italy and Gavin Newsom if we're into that. But this is really here for you. This is here. I feel like you are all my like little coven, cosmic coven that I just get to chit chat with and yap about what's happening in the astrology and how I see it playing out here on Earth, because it's just so literal. And I also like to use it, like I said, to understand a little bit of the medicine and the magic in this mess. It feels very messy right now. So that's it for this week. Signing off. Let me know if you're watching this on YouTube. Sound off in the comments below. Come find me at the Cosmic RX on Instagram. Like, subscribe, rate, review, all those good things if you want to keep this coming. And I'll leave you with this. Just remember, part of this collective revolution is fueled by your personal evolution. And part of that is like really being a bad bitch with a good heart. So going out there and being unapologetically you while being empathetic and open. It's like literally written in the stars. So go out there, do that this week. Let me know how it goes. Mwah. Bye. Do you love getting your Cosmic RX for the week here and want more? Make sure to sign up for our premium subscription so you can get exclusive access to bonus podcast episodes, all of my astrology info for the month ahead, and live new and full moon calls to help you manifest your dream life with an intentional international community of other cosmic baddies. Sign up through our link in show notes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to know more about Cosmic RX, head on over to thecosmicrx.com. And if you really love this show, I'd love it if you left a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. I super love hearing from you and reading your reviews. All right, you cosmic baddie, tune in next week. And until then, remember, love yourself fully, work your magic, and take no shit.